Let's start again. Sorry about that. It's friggin' technology, man.
Well, I'm the same. I'm no good at it.
Right, so get close to that mic. Yeah, we've had a couple of. I've done about 80 podcasts, and they don't all go swimmingly well technology-wise. So I always freak out, and then I've got to make that horrible call and say, you know that podcast that we did where you spilled your guts out on the table.
I done one with that Stuart Williams was my first one.
Okay.
And he'd done it in Nottingham, in a theatre, and he just had the mic next to him in a sense.
Right.
Because he used to do them, then he just, I don't think he does them now. I haven't spoken to Stuart for
I think he's making a comeback, you know.
Is he?
I think so, because it came on here and I think he really enjoyed it. He's got a talent, Stu.
Very good.
He's a very articulate man.
Yeah. He's a lovely fella, like.
Yeah. So did that one go all right? That you were just, or did he fuck up somewhere with technology as well?
That was just a thing on the ground. He did. He used to have them out. I don't think he has them out anymore. He had Neil Adams and different Jeff and all them kind of people. But he would rather not have this. He would rather just be like in a coffee shop, getting the noises of things and that. Whether he's changed, I don't know, because I haven't seen him. I haven't seen him for a few years. Like,
well, I know I asked him to do one online. He was like, no chance. So I think he's still into that. Like, let's go for a walk or let's meet and let's chat. And he's right. Like, some of the ones I've done online, they were great, and I don't want to knock them, but they weren't as good as like this face to face. Do you know what I mean? Being around you and speaking to you and getting to know you properly. Which is, it is. Like, I'll get to know you today properly. And that's kind of what I look forward to.
I might get to know me.
So, well, I mean, like I say, I mean, we were chatting, we did a little bit before, obviously, I started the podcast again, but I'm excited. Like I say, it was difficult knowing where to start because you've been through so much.
Yeah.
I was reading your book in Pret yesterday, and I just had to stop. I was crying in Pret, man.
Where did you get up to on it?
Halfway.
I've only been managed to read 3/4. I've not been able to, although I wrote it, which sounds really crazy. I can't bring myself to read the whole thing, really. Like,
yeah, it was upsetting. I could, even though I haven't been through that journey, nowhere near, I could relate to some of the stuff he was saying. I could relate to the idea that God might punish you. I could really relate to that because there's some things that happened in my life too, and I was like, this is God saying, "Fuck you! I'm gonna teach you."
I've always had that over my shoulder, really. And that comes from my granddad. As lovely as he was, he always said, if you do something bad will come back. So I just think, has God been punishing me? I doubt it. I just think I've been punishing myself, really. That makes sense.
I'm not sure about this karma, cause and effect, because again, even like your Jeff Thompsons will say it's real. Causality is real, you know. Unfortunately. But I'd hate to think that that's the case, but who knows, man?
No, I mean, I like I say, I haven't spoken to Jeff for a few years, but I always remember him like saying to me, we had kind of similar journeys.
Yeah.
From the abuse and different things, and going on the doors into security and different things like that. And obviously, you know, he's went off a different path, and like, but I went down the therapy route, and you know, and become a therapist myself in the long run, really.
8 years of therapy, man. You did, yeah.
I'd done eight years with. I could go really back to 18 in a sense. I'd done it with a counsellor, but I was so embarrassed then. And I'd done it because my girlfriend wouldn't stay with me if I didn't do it, which I totally get. But the shame then, I'd have to get the last appointment. I'd done it in the winter, and I used to put a hood up and run in and things. But then he couldn't really help me, so he sent me to a mental hospital in Morpeth, which is kind of just outside Newcastle. And they put all the wires on your head and different things like that. I wish I'd got the report of that, because it probably made more sense, but part of my brain, which I can only say it's probably something different now, was like that of a 12-year-old. Well, that made me so much embarrassed, and the guy told me you need to stop drinking and things. Well, drink meant so much to me because it gave me just to sit and speak to people, and social skills and things like that. It helped me sleep at night. I could never sleep. So drink helped me sleep. If I didn't sleep, I had nightmares. So that always allowed me to sleep. And I remember going back to the counsellor, and he had the results, and he says, well, you need to stop like drinking and things like that. And I remember getting up and telling him to fuck off and walking up, which was wrong, but that's where my head was. And I never went back till I was 33, really, meeting Michelle in the pub. That's where. And she, as probably I've said to many people before, she's an angel, man.
Well, she was also a motivation for you to go to therapy, right?
Oh, if I hadn't, I wouldn't have been here now. That was the simplest case, because I was going away to Bosnia. A friend who I used to work with in Grimsby, his mate worked over in Bosnia, remote Kosovo at the time, and it was coming to an end there, and he said, you've got a chance, you could go and be a mercenary there. But in my head, I just wanted somebody to put a bullet through my head. That's all I wanted to do. And as mad as it sounds, I wanted to go out in glory. I always wanted to be, I'll be remembered that way, going out in glory. And probably I wouldn't have, because nobody had ever known me anyway. But that was in the back of my head, you know, because I tried to end my life a few times growing up and things.
Yeah.
And I didn't seem to succeed, and that just added to the failure.
How old were you when you first tried to take your own life?
I can remember that today. I was 16. My mother was living with this guy. He had money. He bought me a motorbike for my 16th birthday, and it was just a DT50. And I remember waking up on Valentine's Day at 16, just hating myself, as I've done most of my life. Thought, I'm going to go across the A1. So I remember there's like a crossroads where I used to live, and I thought, I'm going to go. I looked up the road and I seen the wagon coming down. So I turned round. It sounds a bit funny now, this, and went as fast as I could. You could in a 50, which is probably 35 tops. Well, as I was going along, I could see the wagon going past. I knew I was going to miss that, but I just kept going, and I went into the side of a Mark II Escort. And I remember I knocked myself out, and I remember that I kind of woke up in the ambulance, and that was there. And the first thought in my head, I thought, I can't even fucking do this right. So I had to fight thoughts a lot of times. And where I come from, you live across Tweedmouth, I lived, and there's a bridge, there's 3 bridges across to Berwick. And I'd have to fight myself all the time, jumping, the thoughts in my head all the time, and try and fight that all the time. And that was constant growing up.
So, you know, when people say, you know, if I asked you, you know, should you do therapy for another person, I think the instinctive answer is no, you should do it for yourself. Yeah. But there's a good example there, isn't there, of like, if you've got somebody in your life that's kind of like worth, maybe that helps you find a reason to go and change.
Yeah.
Because I think sometimes that's where a lot of guys get stuck. It's like, well, you know, I'm 30, 40, 50. Like, what the fuck would I change now? Yeah. Unless it has a huge impact on perhaps somebody that you love, maybe.
Well, for me, it's either that or death.
Yeah.
And that was exactly it was that line. Michelle said, if this is going to work out, and she's not like being a person who you have to do this and have to do that, and I made that choice. She says, if this is going to work, this was early days, she says, either go into counselling or going to counselling, or I'll leave, and you need to stop drinking, or I'll leave. And I believed that. And I went to counselling. Counselling didn't work for me, to be honest. I'd done the 12 sessions, didn't work for me at all. So they referred me to a clinical psychologist. And I remember walking in there. I wrote poems about all these different things. I remember walking up the stairs and things, and walking in, and the psychologist greeted. He says, you can go through there next door, and he says that'll be an easy fix. And just a surface fix, really. Like, I didn't know what that was then, but I think it'd probably been CBT in a sense. I think anyway. I could never prove that or stay with me for the hard term. And when he said that word hard term, that suited me. I was going to punish myself more. This is going to be harder. It's going to be harder. So that's why I ended up with him. Would I do that again? Nah.
No?
100% no.
Why?
I feel, and this is my personal belief, and if it's a psychologist speaking, it'd probably totally go against me. He re-traumatized me so many times, and I eventually went down to 9 stone in weight. I couldn't even leave Michelle's house at the time. I was so anxious, again, not understanding anxiety back then. I couldn't even get from here to that creative futures door there. So I had to train myself to get to the gate, and that might take 3 weeks, which was probably 20 steps. So train myself to get there, and I'd be soaking with sweat, couldn't breathe and things like that, beating myself up verbally. Then my next goal was to get to the lamppost. So then that was another few weeks. Then the next lamppost, and my big goal was to go into a newspaper shop and buy a newspaper and come back. And that probably took me 4 months to do that. Michelle at the time, I couldn't eat at all. She'd have to put potatoes and everything into liquidizer so I could drink it. Just couldn't eat. And like I said, you know, I'm a 14 stone bloke, and I went down to just over 9 stone.
And you think this was because you kept going back over some of the things?
Back that, the alcohol played a part as well, because the hard thing was I promised Michelle I wouldn't drink, so that took my crutch away. So that took I could sleep at night. So every night, and this went on for years, Michelle would change my sheets our sheets every night, because it was absolutely drenched. I mean, just soaking through it. I'd be drenched, to have to go for a shower, come back, just for nightmares, constant nightmares.
Yeah.
And it was, I know maybe going off the thing here, I always remember this, and I do believe this, and people might laugh at this. When I was lying there was a big white light in the corner of the bedroom, and I can still see it. And I could see myself floating into this white circular light. And as I got to the light, I looked back, and I could see myself with Michelle on the bed. So I turned around and panicking, trying to pull myself back into my body. I don't know if that was real. It seemed real. It was just a nightmare, but it seemed really real to me.
Well, these experiences, whether they're real or not, I think might be irrelevant. It happened to you, right? And you experience it, so it feels real, and it changes. Some of these things that we see and feel, and these nightmares, they stick with us and they change us a little bit. And I've had a few nightmares that have they've been imprinted in my brain. You know? They've meant something.
Yeah.
And I think there's lessons in there. I think.
It depends how you look at the nightmares, because you come from a counselling point of view and things like that. Depends what sort of stuff you've learned. They'll say it's like it's all a mixed up of memories and a pressure cooker. So when you're lying in bed, it's letting them go. It's just keeping you calm and safe and things like that, instead of having it in your head. Or do they actually, every sort of message means something?
Yeah, I don't think they know, right?
Yeah,
You speak to a different psychologist, therapist, counsellor. Yeah, they've all got different explanations for dreams.
Definitely, you have your own experience and plus what you've learned, isn't it?
Should we go back to the start a little bit? Because I think it's important just to get a bit of background. I don't usually walk people through the journey from the start, but I think it's important because, like I said, when I was doing my research, obviously Steve Neal said you've got to speak to Gaz. Gaz is the fucking man. And he started telling me, I was like, awesome. I said,
he hates Geordies, so doesn't
he? Yeah. So he hooked me up, and then like I say, I started doing the research. I got the email that kind of from Michelle, and then I was reading your book, and I thought, Jesus, you've really been through it, man. I think the most upsetting thing for an outsider reading it was because like it started from when you were an innocent child. And that's always upsetting to read, isn't it? Because it's like, it's not your fault. It's, it's things out of your hands. And like, I always think like some people are given such a rough start in life.
Yeah.
And then it's almost like you have to spend your entire life correcting what happened in the first 10 years.
Yeah.
And it's tough. So yeah, should we go back there? Like it's just from a point of view of that upbringing, that first 10 years, man.
I mean, for me, and it's what I believe in a sense, like if I look at my parents, they got married because my brother was on the way. Back then, that's what you did.
Yeah.
And as I know the history of my mother now, when she was born, she was abandoned by her mum. She had to go and live with her granny. There's a big story about that.
Right.
I won't go into that one. But she got abandoned when she was young. Then her dad was in the army. Basically, my granny didn't want to marry him, so he disappeared. And I met him later on in life, which we could probably go into later if you want to. But actually born that way. So my brother was 11 months before me. Then I come along. From day dot, and I honestly believe this, I don't feel I was wanted. As far back as I can remember, I never felt I fitted in at home. My dad was at old school, you give you a thump, give you a good belt, and if you'd done something wrong, whereas nowadays you'd probably be jailed for that, but it was kind of the normal back then. It doesn't mean to say it's right, but it was the norm. My mum just, I don't know, she was unhappy all the time, to be honest, I believe, and she was always going out and she had different partners and different things like that. Again, she was unhappy as well. My dad, I was frightened of my dad, and yet as I grew up, he was never really a hard man, but I thought he was as a kid. He was emotionally hard in a sense, but he had his own demons, like we said earlier, and that's probably drove him in some ways. But I always remember I was getting bullied at the time, and these three lads came to the house in the summer holidays. Oh, sorry, it was just the Christmas holidays, just after Christmas, and they stole £100, which was a lot of money back then in the early 70s, which was my dad's, and they stole a medallion of my mum's, and they went up to the attic and wrecked the whole attic. So I don't know, they took off, and my dad came back. And obviously I heard him shouting because I didn't realise they broke into like a chest of drawers and they took all the stuff was there. So obviously he came in there. Then he went upstairs and saw all the stuff in the attic. So he got the belt off and I got a good hiding because I wasn't going to snitch on them, to be honest. Then my mum came home and noticed her medallion was missing. And I think there was something else I can't remember, but the medallion was the big thing for her anyway. And I got another belting. So I thought, that's it for me. Like, I've had too much of this and they don't love me and blah blah all this. So I decided in the morning, early in the morning, I was going to run away. So I remember, and I was 9. I'd been 9. I just started middle school. I'd been 9-year-old, and I remember going downstairs. I did actually steal some money this time, and there was some sweetie rock that a relation had brought back from Blackpool or something like that. And I remember my Alsatian, and I know this is disgusting. I remember him getting up to remembering her, and she looked at us, and I kicked her so hard in the teeth because I was so jealous of that dog. Because as a little boy, my mum loved animals and nursed them and nursed them and nursed them. But when it came to us, we were shoved out the way. Me and my brother would have been shoved out the way. So there was none of that emotional stuff when we were kids. So anyway, walked away, and I walked 14 mile, and it was in the winter. And I remember I was speaking about this other day to me, mate. I remember I came to an icy river, and it was frozen. And I remember lying down, pushing myself along, like keeping myself flat. And he's an ex-military man. He says, "Where'd you learn that?" And I says, "I used to get the Warlord comics, the Victor comics, and the Commander books. I was army daft as a kid. Everything in my room, one side was all army stuff, and my brother's was all football stuff." And I remember that there was a guy called Codename Warlord, and he'd be like a hero. He'd get dropped in all these things, but you'd learn survival skills from and the stories. And in the comic life, he was called Codename. He was called Flint, but he looked like a coward. So he had this coward personality, but actually was a hero all the time. And that always fantasized over that, just that aloofness, and you do all these wonderful things, but nobody really knows you're doing it. And I'm probably still a little bit like that in life now. But anyway, I remember getting away, went to a place called Millfield where my cousin, my nana and that lived, and that was 14 mile. And I remember getting my cousin, and he didn't want to go across the river coming back, so I had to walk across the bridge. So then the police caught me going over the bridge. But going back to my mate, he says 14 mile for a 9-year-old lad to do. I never thought anything of that. To me, it's just 14 mile as a 9-year-old kid wanting to be away from my dad because I hated him at the time. You know,
where were you going?
I was going to go. My uncle had a farm not far away, and I had in my head we're going to live in the haystacks. It's just little kids things, isn't it?
Yeah.
But I remember the police taking me home, and all my dad wanted to do again was just hit me again. So my mum stopped him. I still remember my mum stopping him, really. They stopped us. But I remember the cop I was called Sergeant Laidlaw, and he said, "You're going to have trouble with that boy when he's older." And I remember him putting me in the back of the police van later on in life. So I always struggled at school. I felt the odd one out at school all the time. I was always in trouble, constantly in trouble. I'd be stealing for try and keep friends on my side and things, all that sort of stuff. I never knew who I really was, even then. Because I think when you're told you're no good from your family, you just believe you're no good. If you're getting no love, it doesn't matter about materialistic stuff. My mum and dad weren't poor. We never got anything material, but the thing we never got was the emotional support. So and to me, that's the biggest thing for you. You could live in the shed as long as you're getting love and things like that. You know, so that was the big thing. But then after that, I think I maybe told you on the email, I ran away from school one day, and I used to go and play down. There's like a little beach called Spittle Beach where I come from. It's just a little beach, and the fishermen fish there and things like that when I was a kid. And I remember then I was playing on the boats, just pushing it out. Then you used to have a rope and you pull yourself in and you jump in and you push it out and jump back in. And this man was there. But the guy came along and he got his knob out. And to me, there's a little boy, he was swinging it round. It probably wasn't like that, but that's what I can remember.
Yeah, just come to that mic, guy.
And he asked us where the toilets were. And so I went and showed him where the toilets, and we went into the toilets. And he dragged us into the cubicle and things and made us touch his, do thing to his thing and that. So I managed to get away. He was pulling me, and because it was a stinking old toilet, so there's loads of piss on the floor, and he went one way, and I went the other way, and I remember running, and it was like a boat overturned, and I managed to get under there, and he was trying to lift it, but I remember the fishermen coming, and they not necessarily knew what happened, but they shouted at the guy, so he took off, and when they lifted the boat up, I was underneath there, and I ran like. But I couldn't go and tell me parents or anything like that, because in my head, I didn't know what that was anyway. Yeah. At the time. But
how old were you when that happened?
I'd have been around 10.
So by the time you were 10, you'd been beaten, abused.
And that's the other thing was, this happened really around, which almost sounds like a big lie, but it's not. It all happened around the same time. But even that happened, I would still go back to the beach. And I didn't understand that. And growing up thinking, oh, I must enjoy that. But it's because when you've been abused, you go, it's almost like you get attracted to people or areas, you go back to the same areas and things. It's like trauma bonding in some ways. And what I used to do, there used to be a docks, what's still there actually, the big boats used to come in. So I would go down to the boats and they'll give you a few pennies to go and run errands for them. So you go and get food for them and stuff like that and bring them back. But I ended at the little beach and they made a fire and all these guys were around there. There's about 10 of them and they're all drinking beer. So they're passing the cans round and they give me a can. So they opened it and me being me, I started to drink the can. But I didn't like the taste and I spat it out. And this guy got me on the ground where I was and he poured all the drink on the ground and he pushed my face into it. And you could feel it coming up your nose and your mouth. And he pulled my shorts down and he had a knife. It seemed like a big knife, it might have just been a little knife. And he tried to shove it up my bum. And the guys who were there stopped him in the end. But I remember the blood coming down my legs and running home. And I had to hide my shorts because I didn't want my mum to see my shorts and things like that. So that kind of happened in the same sort of time, within a couple of years, really, all that sort of stuff. Which again, growing up, you kind of push it to the back of your mind. But the way I acted, I couldn't handle any men coming near me. Never really realised why at all, to be honest. But I couldn't. Probably this would be all right. But if you were sitting next to me, I wouldn't have been able to do it or anything like that. I couldn't sit next to men. Physio, I couldn't get men to touch me or anything like that. But never realised. It came up more when I had therapy. That.
Yeah.
But even today, my wife was on Ireland at the weekend for her 50th, and I still, when there's nobody in the house, I put a wedge in the door, my bedroom door, and I have my stick next to me in the bed. It's that feeling I don't want to be caught vulnerable. When my wife's home, I feel safe. As much as my wife, as lovely as she is, she can't fight her way out of a paper bag. Yeah. She'll wake up. So it's that fact of being caught vulnerable and being, asleep.
Yeah, understandably. I think it's so easy, isn't it, to have a look at like teenage lads who are causing trouble, or the reference that copper said, it was like, oh, you're gonna have trouble with that lad. Yeah. So easy to just say flippant comments like that without having a look at what's actually happening.
He just reinforced what my dad and mum said about me, what the teacher said about me, and so he's just reinforced that. Yeah. And I began to reinforce it myself then as well. I just constantly reinforced it. I
think that's where it becomes real dangerous, right? When like you obviously believed all that.
100%.
Yeah, like unlovable, all that kind of stuff that you referred to in the book. I can see why you would have that perspective of yourself. Yeah,
I couldn't look in the mirror because I thought I was ugly. My mum wanted a girl and my hair was like a girl. I used to have long eyelashes and my cheekbones were high, and I'd literally pull my eyelashes out. I'd try and thump my cheekbones down, anything to try and stop us looking like a girl and like feminine when I was little.
Probably hence the fighting and stuff like that then coming into play.
I think it in some ways, if you really look deep into psychology, I think even tattoos, as much as the modern tattoos, I chose them, but I think the older ones, which I would never get rid of because it's your biography, isn't it, in a sense? So it's that sort of way of this is who I am. But I think them ones was probably more in a way subconsciously stay away from me, because when we were kids having tattoos, it was kind of military or tough guys that had tattoos. Yeah. Nowadays, every Tom, Dick and Harry's got, women just have as many tattoos as guys do. So I think there's a lot of psychology, not necessarily I'm going to get a tattoo to look hard. I just did it and to fit in.
Yeah, well, Jeff calls it armour, yeah. But it's funny you say that. Today there was a guy I was chatting to, and I'm friends with this guy, and I know him, and he looked at some of my tats. He said, do people not get scared coming up and talking to you? He's like, you're 6'2", you got a skinhead, and you got tattoos. And I said, I don't know. I think I've been called intimidating before. I don't feel like I am. But yeah, like you say, it's probably the ink, bit of muscle, skinhead.
I think probably you're in your 30s in a sense. It's still
not for long, bro.
Not for long, no. But I think the younger generation, like my son's 15 and he's coming, he doesn't want any, but when he's coming up, they just see tattoos all the time on girls. It's just, it doesn't mean anything.
It's not unique now.
You see coppers covered in tattoos and things.
I think getting one went back in the day for me was like not many people had them. I want to get them, but it's weird you say that. I got this arm done when I had my biggest like depression. Like it's all dark. It's all dark. It's all like a dark angel, an angel with a tear coming out. It's weird that you say that. It was. Matty always said it's a bit self-harmish.
It does, because it's not nice.
But I like that pain.
That's what I'm saying. Is
exactly.
Is it self-harm? I mean, I've got that tattoo there. It's Archangel Michael, and I've got a different one, Archangel Michael, on my back of my calf, and that means something to me. So I got that because it meant something. Them other ones, which I got at 16, don't really. Maybe Jeff's probably right what he says. It's like an armor, isn't it?
I think so. The angel thing's weird though. I've got angel wings here. I've got angel here. I don't know why I've got this thing with angels. I'm not sure whether it's a savior thing or. I love the concept of like someone coming into your life like Michelle. But the danger is there that you wait for that person to come and save you if you haven't got that person.
I never waited because I just came out of a marriage, which I ruined myself, and I'd been working up in Glasgow, and the lad I used to work in, I'd fell out with a lad in Glasgow, and and I nearly said the guy's name, I better not. But anyway, the guy in Grimsby, he needed a job done, whereas there was some drug dealers he needed to sort out and things like that, and then he asked us, do you want to come? So I said, I will. And the strange thing is I went to church before I went and done that, because he's really spiritual.
Crazy.
So he's a loner, but very, very spiritual guy. And he'd be paid to go into pubs and things and clean pubs out and things. So he wanted a hand. And it was just, for me, it wasn't to try and be a hard man, just to have a scrap. I didn't care what happened to me anyway, really, if I lived or died. And I remember going into the pub, which I think it's in the book, the two of us. And obviously he loved the woman, like, and I'm just desperate for the scrap. And he saw Michelle and her best friend Fiona at the time, and they obviously started chatting, and he kind of spoke to Fiona more. And whatever Michelle saw me that time, I don't know what it was like.
Do you ever have doubts like that now, Gary, where you think, what does Michelle see in me?
Not really. I think
I
have doubts about myself still.
You've never been like, how can someone love this?
I've definitely been like that for a lot of years.
Yeah.
I would say probably the past few years, more so since I've wrote that book and Michelle got cancer, really.
Yeah.
I don't know what happens to you. I don't in a sense look deep into things that much. But the last time I wanted to end my life, and I came back from Afghanistan, and it was nothing to do with Afghanistan. I've been away for 3 months. I hadn't been in contact with the family, and that was my choice, which is wrong. I just wanted to just focus on what I was doing, if that makes sense. And coming home and hearing different moans, and I know it's big moans for them, and just think, oh man, she'd become mum and dad, and I just felt I was no use. So I remember that was 2012, and I remember, and my next book's going to be called it. Actually, there's 2 trees in the garden, and I waited till Michelle and the kids went to school, and I was going to hang myself. And it was just, I got a phone call that day, and I don't know what made me answer it. I answered it, and it was a guy, more of a friend really. He says, look guys, he says, I'm going to give you this number. He says, phone this number when I come off the phone. And he says, I'll check to do. So I phoned it, and there was a guy called Chris Parker up in Nottingham, the guy I was on about before, a martial artist guy. And I went up to see him. He does NLP and different things like that. Really wise guy, like. So he kind of helped me. And that's not that long ago, 10 years ago, which seems a lot, but it's not really, like. But I was in a dark place then. And I had to fight a lot of times, again, trying to end my life and things like that. I don't know what makes it stop me ending my life. I don't generally want to end my life. It sounds I'm contradicting myself yet. It's I can't handle the thoughts in my head.
Yeah.
That was the thoughts in my head to tell me to end my life, and you're no good, you're useless, you make everybody shit, you make yourself shit, and just the whole lot, to be honest, Alex.
So how did you learn to separate you then from the voice?
I've learned what I did from going for my therapy, which I said earlier was 8 years. He suggested to go and see somebody who'd done CBT to learn social skills, because I had no social skills at all. So learn social skills. So I looked in the yellow pages, and I was drawn to the woman who lived the furthest one away, which was about 14 miles away, and there was loads of other ones there. But for whatever reason, I was drawn to that one, so I'd go by that gut feeling.
Was she pretty?
No. No, she wasn't, like, but she's definitely lovely, like, but there's nothing like that at all. Like, she wasn't pretty at all, like, good soul though.
Yeah.
But
Well, that's
anyway,
probably the attraction, right? Yeah.
but I didn't know that at the time. But I was drawn to it anyway. I went there, and she lived in a big place called Earlswood. I don't know if you know Earlswood.
No, mate, no.
It's not too far from it. It's a big, it's in a posh place.
Oh, is it? That's why I don't know it, mate.
It's really posh, like, and it's on Tanner's Green Lane, and it's all big posh houses with like, they've got no neighbours really. It's that kind of, you know, it's far apart. So I went in there, went around. She's come around the back entrance, and I knocked on the door, and this old lady came, like a dottery old lady came to the door, and I opened the door. And I said, Gaz, and she said, I'm Elizabeth, and she says, one day you're going to work with people I can't work with, who other people struggle. And I thought, what a load of shite this is, straight away. So she took me in, and she's a psychologist, but she says, I want you to lie in a bed. I'm not going to do psychology. I'm going to do Reiki on you. So she done the Reiki on me, and I got really poorly with the Reiki, and she done the Reiki for about a year on me, and I used to get cellulitis and everything with it, lots of stuff coming out. Again, if you believe in that stuff, and seeing all these fighting things, like fights and different things and all that sort of stuff. Yeah, way back when I was a pirate, again, if it's true, but I could clearly see myself on boats and things. And the things she says, you've never made 30 in your life ever. And I thought, that really hit home, that, because when I was a kid, I always remember I'll never live over 30. I can always remember saying to myself. And she says, you have now. So she done the Reiki, and I got so much from the Reiki after I've come all the stuffing out. So then she taught me it. So she taught me to be a Reiki master.
Oh, you Reiki guy?
Reiki master.
I had my first Reiki session 3 weeks ago.
It's powerful, man. Again, I was skeptical to it, because there's a little guy in the street and that, but I do believe now, and you know, I'm nowhere near the far along that spiritual journey like Jeff and them. I've kind of pushed back and pushed forward, pushed back a lot of times and things like that. But I do feel we've all got that power in us to heal ourselves. You can't change your blue map. If you're going to die, your blueprints, or you're gonna die, aren't you? But I do believe we can heal ourselves, and I do think. And she always says to me, she could go into a hospital, which is a bold statement. She reckons she could clean it out by 75% if she was allowed to, because she reckons most things are to do with emotions.
I'd find that hard to disagree.
I do know, but I thought, what a load of shite when she told us
that. I was the same. Even though I feel like I'm much more advanced than I used to be. I went round. She was 72. This little old lady in Coventry. Went round the house for a Reiki session. I was a bit anyway, she was lovely straight away. You could tell she was a lovely person. But mate, I was there for 3 hours. She did Reiki, a card reading. I've never had cards read. And again, part of me is not open to it, and then there is a voice saying, "This is fucking bullshit. This is fucking bullshit. Yeah. She's just making this shit up." Do you know what I mean? But yeah, some of the stuff she said, like I went in, mate, sat down, she put the kettle on. I don't know where this come from. She looked at me and said, you need to stop reading as much. The answers are within you, not in all those books you're reading. And I was going through this phase of reading so many books, looking for an answer. Show me where I can learn the meaning of life. Show me how I can find happiness. Tell me. And then when I've read that book, I'm going to read the next. And when I've read that, I'm going to read the next. I'm going to keep searching and searching and searching. And she just said, stop fucking reading. I was like, what? Where did that come from?
No, but it's true. I've done it, and I bet there's lots of other people done that, reading, and there's nothing wrong with that. At my home, I have like an alcove, and on one side it's got all the military books. I can't read. It has to be true stories to read. I can't read fiction at all.
Yeah, I'm not a fiction guy.
I've tried, I just can't do it. Yeah. So it's got all these crime books about all sorts of criminals, way back to London gangsters, way down in history, and military heroes and that. Then the other side of the wall, I've got all these self-help books. It's like the two parts of who I am.
Get it, mate, yeah. I've read hundreds of the things. And I suddenly thought, how many fucking self-help books am I going to read? And what am I searching for, you know? Because I think when you get to a certain age, I keep saying these on the podcast, you kind of know yourself, like 38, 50, what did you say?
22, 56.
56. You should know yourself better by that point. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? Through your own life experiences and stuff. But there's something addictive about hoping there's an answer in there that's going to make your life better and pain-free. Yeah. Because I think that's what a lot of us are searching for. I don't know whether you'd agree with the suicide thing. You just want to stop being in pain. Yeah. And that's what I think we search for.
A letdown. I believe there was a letdown to everybody.
Well, mate, you're not alone. Yeah. How many guys feel like that now? Like, surely if you kill yourself, that's how you must feel. Yeah, and a lot of men kill themselves.
I mean, sadly, where I come, it is a big thing. Come from a small town, I've lost close friends who've ended their lives and things like that. And there's a lot more from the town. From a town that's probably 12,000 people, there's been a lot of suicides since I've been growing up and things. So it is quite a big thing. And I do believe it's... Would I have ever spoke to any of my mates back then? Definitely not.
No, I get
100%.
I'm not sure this strategy of encouraging men to talk all the time is necessarily going to be the thing that changes everything. Because Steve was saying that actually men are talking more than ever now. Like this conversation would not have happened 10 years ago.
Aye.
And here we are.
It's talking about, but then it's doing something about it as
well.
You've
got to. That's the main thing, right?
Me and you could have a chat here and have a really good chat and go home and just get back. If I've got shit lives, I'm not going to drink into me. Just go back to that. That was a nice chat I had with him. Just get on with my life. Yeah. But I'd go home and ponder on things and really and pull it apart and things like that.
Can I ask you a really difficult question then?
Yeah.
If you didn't have Michelle, if you went home and Michelle said, "Oh, I'm leaving," do you think you'd be alright?
Aye. Yeah.
See, that's fucking confidence right there. 100%.
I'd be sad, and I definitely would be sad. But the way I am in my life is, we've been through some shit together, like lots of people, but we have been through a lot. And she should have left me a long time ago, but I think only because I kept working on myself to get better, she stuck by me. But no, if she left me tomorrow, I'd be heartbroken. But I'd feel maybe it's just time to move on and sense like that. Maybe she'll find happy. I'd actually think in some ways she might be a bit happier because she's been through a lot with me. She might say if she was sitting here doing a podcast, she might say it's totally different.
Well, that email that I got was beautiful.
Yeah.
It's hard to not think that a woman that you're with would be better off with someone else, because in my world, there's always someone better than me out there.
Aye.
Of course there is. In fact, every fucker out there is better than me.
Well, yeah, they're not.
No, sure, but you know that voice you spoke about
massively,
earlier? That's the one that fucking creeps into us sometimes, isn't it?
But it's like that letter that was done in the Tony Summers course, Tony and Matty's. And I remember Tony, and there was loads of tough guys on that day. What you class?
It weren't. Was it a physical day, or was it self-defense?
No, it's been over. We used to go once a month, so you'd have to go once a month.
I know which course it was.
I'm going back a good few years now.
Yeah.
Like,
I remember them doing it.
I forgot what it's called actually.
Yeah, no, I know. It's not the self-defense for the soul, because that was one I was on, but they did one after, and it was once a month. I think they did a bit of both, didn't they? A bit of striking, a bit of talking.
Well, Tony does the talk, and I don't know if Matty probably wouldn't have been there then, if that makes sense.
No, he probably would have been doing the punching at that point. But they both believe that, like, Tony, especially at the time, he was like, I like to get guys to fucking get angry, boom, 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 hit these pads. And then they go, and then they talk. Which is what I've always been to. Let's climb this mountain. And then they talk.
Yeah. But I remember Tony kept me to last, and I thought, why is it keeping me to last? Because you knew I'd been struggling, because I could never speak in front of anybody, ever. I would never tell my story or anything. I didn't know what was in the letter, because Michelle taped it up. So anyway, I told Tony this, and so he kept us till the end. And I remember opening it in front of everybody and standing tall, and I could feel the tears coming out of my eyes, and I was embarrassed as well with the tears. But then I looked up, I could see other men crying as well. And I remember walking off, and I don't know if Tony's remembered this, and Tony Summers says, "Why are you here, Gaz?" And I didn't know what he meant. Oh, I'm fucking here to learn some skills and do this in my head. But actually, probably a few years later, I start to realise, why is any of them guys there? They're all tough lads. So why are they there? Are they trying to, and myself, am I trying to come up with this other technique that makes us even more tougher, and which I never believe I was anyway, or what is it? And it's think, how many men are there actually suffering? Like, not physically wise, emotionally wise, and actually probably 80% of them probably were, if you really sat them down here, which maybe some of them you already have, and actually get to know them, and the story will tell you why you're there. Because I've got mates who've never done self-defense, and they're tough lads, you know.
But there's a common theme there, isn't there? And I'm finding this out now. It's like you go physical, and you reach a certain point where you can't go much further with the physical, and you realise actually what's fucking hurting me is my inability to get a grip on my thoughts, my emotions, my feelings. That's what fucking hurts.
Yeah.
And fighting's a wicked way to cover that up. So is drinking.
Drinking was massive for me, and fighting. I loved.
Drinking and fighting.
No, but I loved it, and I hope this doesn't come across I'm trying to be a hard man, because believe me, I've never been that kind of person. Some people might have thought of trying to be, but I know it wasn't. But I loved it. I used to, me and my pal, we used to walk over, and he'd be saying, "Who am I going to have a shag with tonight?" And I'd be saying, he'd always see the tattoos to the window head, like, "Who am I going to have a fight with tonight?" And that'd be my first love. And I couldn't wait, whether it was it would never be people you know. It would be strangers in the town, because our town used to be really lively.
Yeah.
Lots of nightclubs and things for a small town. But also the police. So it'd be that. If I didn't get a fight with somebody, I'd fight the police.
Yeah.
And that's where, you know.
Yeah, I get it, mate. I was at BJJ last night and I was rolling with a lovely guy.
Aye.
But he caught me in the face, and for 5 seconds
Aye.
I just wanted to rip his fucking head off.
Aye.
And I thought, it's still there, Alex, man.
Aye.
Still that little bit of anger, you know, when you just want to kill someone.
Aye. I think it stays with you. I know I'm more control with me, and I'm glad that's not my first reaction. And to be honest, I've got no interest doing self-defense now. I keep myself like my own. I've got my own little dojo where I do my own little thing, but I've got no interest to do it anymore. Like it's, and I never thought I'd ever get there. So I've come through that part, and whatever part I'm on now, I'm open to whatever it is anyway. You know.
Well, I went down that road, guys, and I think I got a bit scared.
Aye.
And this happens occasionally, and I know I'll go back, but I was starting to do more spiritual than physical.
Aye.
And I felt shit. And I'm not saying that's because it's the wrong thing to do.
Aye.
I think because it was the biggest fight ever.
Yeah.
Going into the spiritual world, when you start to look at yourself and you realise, shit, I haven't got control of my emotions. That person's making me feel like this, and I don't know how to stop.
Aye.
All that is such a hard fight versus BJJ or boxing or weights. That's the easy fight.
Yeah. Yeah.
The hard fight is to get in there and go, okay, right, well, all right, let's start getting the grips with this.
Yeah.
It's fucking brutal, isn't it?
Oh no, it is.
It's fucking brutal, man.
No, I definitely. Nah, it definitely genuinely doesn't interest me anymore. My son does it, you know, and he does it with my pal. I don't even train my son. I just train myself. Or if anybody was come for counselling and wanted to do a little bit self-defence. But it's very basic what I'll teach. It's not going to be teaching locks and throws and things like that. It's just about keeping it simple. Yeah. You know, what's going to help you on the street, you know.
So that answer of like, I'll be okay on my own, that must mean like things like jealousy and that don't rear their ugly head too much because of that answer.
You could let it back in, because my wife was away for her 50th, so I could let it back in thinking, what happens if she meets somebody there? But then I can let it go.
You can just let it go
Where
ahead.
Before, the old me, I actually think she probably wouldn't have went. And the old me, that she'd have been that worried about all the hassle leading up to it. All the hassle if she went, I'd be phoning her and checking her all the time and things like that. And I would have been doing that, sadly. That's where my head was. Yeah. I was very, very jealous. You know, she got to the place where she needed counselling because I was in therapy herself. So it was that bad for her. Yeah. I'd be on her all the time, in a sense, day by day. If she went to school, all that sort of stuff, I'd be, yeah, she's going to school, which rationalised, yes, she is. But in my head, no, she's seeing somebody else, just lying constantly. If she looked out the window, she's looking at somebody else walking down the street. So she was constantly on guard herself, you know. But for whatever reason, and I've said this a couple of times today, she saw something in me, and she'd always said, if you see this through, I'm staying with you. And bless her, she did. Like,
do you think she saw past all that bravado and bullshit then? Do you think she obviously got a sense of your heart, of your soul, of like the real Gary, and she knew that behind all that anger was the guy that you are now?
She always says, like I did, I'd have never went into therapy if I had my life, if I could see what was coming. And she says herself, if she could have saw what was coming, she wouldn't have married me. Like, and that's a definite. But we've been together for 22 years. We met in 99. I was married in 2000. It's like a year. Yeah. You know, it was my birthday when we went into that pub, and that's a chat up line, isn't it? Yeah, it's my birthday, and she wouldn't believe it. So I've got my birthday tattooed on my belly. So that was my chat up line. I was tattooed on my belly, like. Yeah. Wow. And we're poles apart. She comes from such a lovely, lovely family. Yeah. Really kind family. Yeah. And then there was me.
Well, I've got so many notes in between the time that you met Michelle and those teenage years that you spoke of, because I know you had a bit of trouble with the law.
Yeah, lots.
I've got a little note here that you spent some time living in a caravan as well in your mate's garden.
Aye, because my mum met a new fella, so she threw us out.
So how old were you when you got thrown out then?
Oh, I'd probably been. My son had been born, so I'd have been probably 23.
Oh, quite, yeah, you weren't like a kid then.
Oh, God, no.
So you stayed at home till you were 23 and then you got
stayed with my mum, then my mum threw me out because I didn't get on with the guy she was with, so I went to live with my dad. Then he threw us out, and all justified, like, I was just, my head was just gone. I didn't realise what gone meant, but it was gone, like. Yeah. So my mate offered me put me up. I didn't want to put anybody out, to be honest, and that's my best friend, which he's in the book, you probably read it. He had a caravan in his garden, so I lived in there for over a year in there. All I was interested, as long as I could get my money for my drink, get out at the weekends and have a good laugh with my pals, that was the thing. Like,
what were you doing for work at that point?
Working with my mate.
Because there was a point where you started working with what you call a Scottish gangster.
That was later on. That was later on when I met my first wife.
What kind of work were you doing for him?
The gangster guy.
Yeah.
Oh, not good work. Like.
Well, I kind of knew it wouldn't be good.
I mean, he got jailed in the end, and I'm glad. Which I wouldn't have, definitely one thing I wouldn't have done anyway. But we had a big fallout. And this was before I went to Grimsby at that time and met Michelle. And the guy who took over me, he got jailed in Estonia for heroin smuggling and gun smuggling and things like that. So there was a lot of that. But I never, and I can swear to God this as well, like I never, if it was drugs, I would have never done anything like that. It was one thing with me. I wasn't bothered about anything else. But drugs, I wasn't getting anywhere.
They weren't child's play stuff. It was stuff that could have got.
Well, he came into my life later on, which I'll tell you about in a minute.
Sure.
When I went and met him, I was working down in London, and I got a phone call from a lad in Berwick. He said, "I've got a chance of your job up in it wasn't Glasgow. It was just outside Bathgate, Polmont. There's a prison there as well. So there's." He says he's having trouble with gangsters. They've threatened him, and they've threatened his wife, and they've threatened his kids. So I packed the guy in London, which I shouldn't have, because it wasn't a bad job, but I packed him, but that was at self-destruct anyway.
Sure.
So went away up to Glasgow, just outside Polmont, met the guy in his house, and he said, "I'm going to put you in a hotel tonight." So he put me in the hotel. Then he came with a package, the hotel, and I remember he said, "I want you to give this you're going to meet this guy tonight. He's going to do something for me." And I said, "Well, if there's drugs in that package, I'm just going home now. I'm not having nothing to do with drugs." He says, "No drugs, trust me." I said, I don't know you." So he opened it, and it was, a lot of money in this package. So it was a tester really, to see what I was going to do. So he was trying to see if he could trust me. So I went to a place called Kilmarnock, just outside Kilmarnock. And I remember this van pulling up, and I had the car facing. I thought, if anything comes, I'm straight out that and gone. Well, I had a dictaphone with me, so I had that switched on. So there was 3 guys in the van that came up and said, "You got the money?" And I said, "Yeah, what's your name?" And he said his name and things like that, just to clarify what was given to the right guy. So I handed it over to him. So anyway, that went by. So the next morning I get a call, "You've got the money." So I haven't handed it over. He says, "No, I can't get in touch with these guys, so you've got the money." I says, "I haven't given it to the 3 guys. We're talking about you made them at 4 o'clock in the morning, blah, blah." So he came to my room. So then I put the dictaphone on, and he heard it. He did, yeah. So I don't know what happened to them guys in the end.
Wow.
But they kept the body anyway. Like.
It's like a scene from a film, that, right? Yeah.
But he trusted us, and he knew I'd done my bit because I'd taped myself.
Sure. Smart move, man.
No, but he used to race racing cars and different things. But the guy who was he fell out, he wanted him done in, and God forbid it never happened, but me and the mate from Grimsby was going to do that job for him, but he got jailed, and I'm glad, and I look back in my life, in some ways somebody's been looking after me, because I could have crossed that line, which I'd have hated myself for, to be honest. I wouldn't have been able to live with myself afterwards, but it never happened, so that was the goal, to try and get rid of this guy. Again, I didn't know much what he was doing, but I know they set his place on fire, and his factories and things all got burned down.
Did you spend much time in prison?
For me?
Yeah.
No, I was jailed for me and my best mate again. I was in the nightclub in Berwick, and his girlfriend come and St Michael's fighting outside, and I remember running out, and the police were all there and things. So, and I keep saying this, it's wrong, I know it's wrong. I remember hitting the copper and everything and fighting and that. Then some lads took me away to calm down. So took us round the corner, and I remember them saying, "Did you calm down?" I says, "Yeah." So the next thing, then, as soon as they let go of me, I ran. And I was able to break into the police station where they were held, got through the 2 doors, and obviously done something to the policeman there as well. But I actually managed to escape back out the police station as well. But they got me the next day, so me, my mate, and his dad, the 3 of us got put on remand in Durham for a couple. we'd had a longer, but Michael's dad had been in before. So he basically said, I'll stay in. So, because if we all tried to get bail, we wouldn't have got it because of him, and we hadn't been to jail before. So we got remanded. We've got bailed after 2 weeks, but then we were banned from all the pubs for, I think it was 3 months, and we're on a curfew, like 7 in the morning till 7 at night. You had to be in the house and that.
Right.
But I got a suspended sentence for that, and probation for, I think it was 12 months suspended sentence. But as soon as I came off my the curfew, we went out, and I remember seeing the cop I had, and he was a horrible copper, like, and he was well known, and he was a bully, really, this copper, like, and he'd always look out for you to try and get you to, which I was easy bait, you know. So, and I remember instead of jumping on him, I jumped on his police dog instead of outside the nightclub. So then I've carted off again, but I didn't get to jail. The dog, the teeth went into me actually, but no, but I'd always been in trouble with the police, and they would follow me around the town and things like that, just to wind you up.
Yeah. And,
you know, some of it was my fault. I'm not going to say here, poor me, because there's nothing about that.
No, sure. Was Michelle the saving grace then, in terms of, like, as soon as you met Michelle, you started to calm down? Or was no, it carried on for a bit,
It's in you, isn't it, in a sense? It's just it doesn't change overnight, does it? I had to work really hard on myself on how to learn about my temper, my emotions and things, learn to communicate instead of kicking off, which I would have done. You know, I've been in town, and I remember a bus pulling in front of us in town, and I remember seeing the guy laughing in his mirror. This was come back not long after I moved to Birmingham, and it was pouring down the rain. I remember getting out of the car, putting the car into the side him, jumping out the car, trying to get into the bus, but they have a lock on, so I couldn't get in the box. But I could see the window open, so I went round the window and I tried to pull him through this little square window, trying to pull him through. Obviously the police came and things, and I got carted off, and the West Midlands bus company came and took photographs, and it proved he was in the wrong actually. So they basically said, we won't press charges if you don't press charges. Right. So that I kind of got away with that, as much as he caused it, but my actions was the wrong actions, really. Like, but no, that was. But going back to teenagers, years, you know, I got thrown out of school, and I was just trouble all the time, really. Yeah. But nobody ever, kids I work with, you always look past the behaviour. Nobody really looked past the behaviour. They're just seeing for what you've been done. They're not seeing, well, why is he doing that? What's going on in his life to make him do that? And I think sometimes in education, they just see somebody that's naughty, and they get either excluded from school and things like that. Whereas, and I get in some ways I haven't got the time as well. Like,
I know, mate, I know.
But that's
not helpful though for the future, is it? Like you say, if someone's playing up that badly, like you say, there's a reason, man.
Because I didn't know I had mental health problems, and I probably had them all my life, but I never knew that. Yeah. You know, people say, oh, he's mental, but it's a saying that somebody's doing daft things, isn't it?
Yeah. Do you believe then, though, that obviously if you've experienced that poor mental health, do you believe that anyone can train themselves towards better mental health?
It depends. I think I always believe if I can do it, that shouldn't mean I should say, well, you can do it. Everybody has their own journey. I think if you got some sort of, I was diagnosed with multiple traumas, like post-traumatic stress. I had attachment disorder. I forgot what other, personality disorder. So I had them three. Well, I still doubt that when I look back now and what I know now. But anyway, because I got diagnosed with ADHD and autism later on in life. Okay. So if you look at autism, post-traumatic stress and ADHD, if you had them in circles, they kind of all cross over in some of the behaviours. So you could say, like they do in schools a lot, they'll say he's got ADHD or she's got ADHD, but you need to look in the background to see, actually, have they got any traumas in their life? Have they been abused or this? So it could be traumas more than it is ADHD, but ADHD is more easier to direct because you can give them medication.
You know Jordan Peterson, right?
Sorry?
Jordan Peterson.
I know the name.
Yeah, clinical psychologist, very famous now. Yeah. He's doubtful of ADHD. He's not quite sure it's a real thing. So, were you on medication then for any of these?
When I was under the psychologist, he put me on a thing called venlafaxine.
Did it help?
It kind of definitely calmed me, but I didn't want to be on it. I tried to fight it all the time, and I was on it for about 2 years. And I remember going to Ireland with Michelle because she's got family in Ireland, and I left my medication here to just stop it. but God, I'd never do that again. And after effects of that coming off, it was terrible. Did it help me? It stopped me getting into rages. I know that.
Okay. Do you feel normal now? Or is there such a thing? Like, do you feel like normal?
I feel normal. My normal stuff to your normal, isn't it?
Sure, but you feel okay, at peace.
Definitely at peace. Yeah. My thing is, I think, although I'm a counsellor now, and the kind of counsellor I've been, I get heavily involved with people. We're not trained to be like that in a sense, but I like the fact, whereas if me and you went out, okay, you pay me for the hour, but if it goes an hour and a half, I don't want any extra money. I don't just shut somebody off. And I think you said earlier that you like this, but I've learned actually I get more out of people if I'm walking side by side with them and chatting to them and things like that, sitting next to a little lake or on a push bike and stopping somewhere or in a pub. So I kind of, the way I do my counselling, I kind of ask them where they want to be. Yeah. That's the kind of way I do it, really. Yeah,
no, I'm a big fan of that too. I love to do talking followed after physical, some kind of physical
I do
adventure.
That as well.
Yeah, I think it's, in my experience, especially groups of men. I mean, this is slightly different. This is just, me and you having an open conversation. And by the way, I really respect you for speaking about this kind of stuff, because it's important, because there will be other men out there struggling with this. Well, I know there are, because I get contacted by a lot of guys, and I struggle with it too, and to hear someone who's been through all the shit you've been, because it's easy, when someone says to transform their life and and they're in a suit and they've got a degree. It's cool, like, I'm not taking it away, but like, you're like a raw example of someone who's like really been through the grit and the dirt of the transformation. Like, you couldn't have had too much of a rougher start in life. And you've still gone on to do this fucking transformation. I'm like, that's who I want to learn off, man. Because you eliminate a lot of bullshit and excuses too, by the way. Do you know what I mean? You're one of those guys that says, and I like that.
That's what I'm saying. I'm probably not everybody's cup of tea, because I'm quite just say it. I don't want to go around the here there. I'll just say it, man.
Why? If you can say something in 5 minutes instead of 15, just fucking say it.
Yeah.
Well, that's what I like about you, man. And I kind of knew that I was going to get that with you today.
Yeah.
But that's how you learn. Like, if you really want to learn, just tell me how it is.
Yeah.
Tell me how it is.
Well, even going back to counselling, the way I counsel, I use my life story, and again, that's kind of frowned upon the way you're taught in counselling. But I don't make it about me. But if you said, well, I was abused, when I was a kid, and I said, well, something similar happened to me, I don't go into my story, but it allows me to build that connection with that person, and I believe that helps me as a counsellor to open that person up, and you as a client as well. I deal with lots of traumas and things, which is probably, as much as you don't want to say something's favourite, but it's what I like, working in the traumas. And I know next year I'm going to be doing the EMDR and different things, so I'm going to go more deeper into it. Because if I can take your trauma away without you speaking about it, that's brilliant. I don't want you to keep coming to me and I'm traumatizing you as I'm chatting to you. I don't agree with that. That's my personal opinion. You just go to reliving it all the time. So I do the rewind, where I can hypnotize you, and do the rewind therapy, where you put your trauma on like a DVD and you rewind it fast forward. And what it does, it opens that amygdala part of your brain and lets it come through where it's stuck there. So I know still stuff of mine is the way I act in life is still because of trauma. I know that. That's the way when I come, I naturally sit and I can see everything as much as I can.
Sure.
It's not like it's a problem for me. It's just who I am. So being a bodyguard, in the sense, when I was doing that, working in overseas and different places, I actually felt calm. That's not about being tough or trying to be a hard man. It's not. I felt whatever's happened to me, I'd feel I fit in here because of that. And that allowed me to be very, very aware. There's a guy I had in Libya, he always said guys had a seventh sense, not a sixth sense. He said, you just knew. But I was so calm, which sounds a bit strange, but it wasn't. It was like, this is what I was meant to do. Like that little boy dreaming of being a soldier, I messed it up. I got me dream. I got me dream in Libya, and I got me dream in Afghanistan. As much as I wasn't a soldier, but I still got me dream. I went to war, which again sounds really mad to some people who might be listening, but it's that warrior in you. It's that, but the warrior doesn't need to be a hard man. It's not that. I keep repeating that because I never want to be judged as a hard man. It's not me.
So life was going good for you, man. You met Michelle. Michelle got pregnant.
Mm-hmm.
Then you found out you were going to have twins.
Yeah.
And then the book explains this in detail, which is I think we caught it on this one, Gary. I can't remember whether it was on this one or the first 5 minutes we did that we didn't record. But I was reading it in prep.
Yeah.
And I got halfway and I said I can't read much more of this.
Yeah.
So I was crying in fucking prep.
No, I found as much as that came along by, bless Michelle, she got cancer. I might get the wrong days here. I think it was 2017, say, or 2016. I think it was 2017. She got diagnosed with breast cancer, bless her. And she'd already been through a lot after losing the twins and being with me as well, just trying to, help me get through my life. And I always remember her saying, can you take the cakes out? Every birthday, she went round all her family, put birthday cakes on the doorsteps. I would never, ever do that. I didn't want any part of it. It sounds really selfish, and it maybe is selfish. I just didn't want to do that. I just wanted to go to bed the day before the birthday and wake up the day after and almost just forget about it. I didn't want to talk about it or anything. But anyway, Michelle says, can you just deliver these cakes for us? And I didn't want to, but I did. So I remember going to deliver the cakes. But it really started to get to me, actually, and thinking more about the girls and things like that, thinking more about Michelle and what all she's all done to me and things like for me and things like that. And I remember coming home and she's got memory boxes for Lana, my memory box for Dana, and I took them into my little dojo at home and sat there and I read everything. I looked at the clause and everything, and it got to me and I started to cry, cried a lot actually in there. And that was probably the first time I cried from 14 years ago.
Wow.
So I'd never really cried about the little ones. Even burying them and carrying their coffins, there's something built into me. I know where it comes from because my dad always said, if you cry, you're weak. So I'd already conditioned myself, you don't show emotions.
Yeah.
So I'd done that. Even in pain, I'd learned not to show pain. So you just learn these things because it was, in my dad's eyes, it was weak. It isn't. I know that now. But I automatically just switch off. It's almost like it's happening to somebody else.
Yeah.
And maybe that's a way of me getting through it and things anyway. So I went to see Michelle and I said, this is what happened. And I said, I feel I want to write something down for her. It was actually for her to start off with. Then it was talked about and said, how many other men's out there goes through the same, which I know firsthand. I've been to, when the first died, went to these memorial days. And I never went back because there was hardly any men then, it was all women. So I thought, I'm not going back there again now. So that's how the book, and because we called them the two bears anyway when they were born and kind of when they were inside Michelle's tummy, we just said Daddy and the Two Bears. And it's a good title in the sense it comes from me, but I don't think people, when they've seen Daddy and the Two Bears, they just probably think it's a kiddies book. So I think that's the only thing maybe if I could have done something.
Yeah.
Because from that book I've been able to speak to midwifery students. It's been in the British Medical Journal about the book, so it's had a bit of press.
Oh, I'm sure, mate. It's powerful. So obviously for people who haven't kind of worked this out, so Michelle fell pregnant. You went and had a scan, realised it was twins.
Yeah,
and you'll have to remind me of what was the TFF?
It's a twin-to-twin syndrome.
Twin-to-twin syndrome.
So it's nowadays, because they've got new equipment. I'm not saying it's easier to, in a sense, you cure it. Cure is probably the wrong word, but they've got a better chance of living because they have a laser, so they can do it by lasers now. When Michelle was pregnant, the needle they put into her and drained.
So what is it? What is this?
It's basically. I wish Michelle was here. It's like one of the twins is overfeeding the other twin.
Right.
It's almost like the bigger twin's looking after the little twin, but overfeeding it, giving it more blood when that blood's losing. So
one becomes. Grows faster than the other.
Aye, definitely. So Lana was the firstborn, and I'll go back to the start. When she got pregnant, obviously we had to go through all this treatment, and she was in hospital a lot, and she'd be getting drainages every week and things like that. Then we got to 28 weeks, went back to the hospital, and they could see a difficulty, so they realised they had to get the little ones were going to be born then that day. The only problem was, because there were twins, there was no beds in Birmingham. There's no cots. There was cots for one baby, but none for two. So Shrewsbury was the only hospital, as you've probably read.
60 miles.
Aye, so whisked away there. Obviously, the Michelle's whisked into emergency cesarean. Then, obviously, the Alana's born and Dana's born. But then Alana got really poorly, so she had to be moved to the children's hospital in Birmingham, where Michelle and Donna stayed there. So I had to race back to the children's hospital to be there for Lana getting out the ambulance, which I didn't think she would make, but she did. And I still remember that phone call 3 days in the consultancy. Just, I could see it myself, and I didn't want to believe it, to be honest. I just believed in my head they're going to be all right, but I could see things starting to turn black. So I knew somewhere that well, it's not good, is it? And the consultancy is just not going to make it, really, like. But I knew Michelle hadn't seen her since they'd been born, and Michelle wasn't allowed out of hospital because of a cesarean. So I remember that phone call stayed with me the rest of my life, saying, Michelle, it's just not gonna. And I could just hear her screaming at the other end, crying. Then maybe 2 hours later, I could hear somebody coming in screaming and crying, and she made it to the hospital where her dad went and got her. She was coming anyway; nobody was going to stop her, like. Sure. So she got wheeled in, and which is, if you can take anything nice, or at least she held Alana before she died.
So she was 3 days old.
3 days old. I remember carrying her down to. They have like a place in the hospital, so I think it's called the Rainbow Room. I might be wrong there, whereas you put your little one, you wash her, and
she was tiny as well, wasn't it?
She was tiny, she was like 2 pound.
Yeah, it was less than 2 pounds.
Like a bag of sugar, a bit smaller. Yeah. You could fit her in the hand, but you washed her. I cut Michelle's better, and I'm just too heavy-handed, and put her stuff on and put left, and just leaving her there, and it's almost like a cold room by herself. It's heartbreaking, but we had to go straight back to Shrewsbury because Donna was there. Yeah. So we went back to Shrewsbury to be with Donna. Really, you felt like you'd forgotten Alana, to be honest. But anyway, and I had to do the funeral in that time as well. So Michelle had to come out for the funeral and things like that. And I remember picking her up, and I remember driving back home to the house. I remember these landscape gardeners had parked in front of the road, and I got out the car. They were just laughing. I'm tooting the horn, and they're laughing and not moving. And obviously they didn't know what was going on, but I proper flipped. And I remember Michelle getting out of the car, lying across the bonnet, screaming at me to come back into the car, and it felt so bad. Like, got in the car, took her home, but then I came back round to see the guys, and I apologised them, like, it's my daughter's funeral, and God, they was just. I think they're going to cry, the guys, actually. Like, like I say, they didn't know anything about it. But then they went back to Shrewsbury, and I would travel up twice a day to see Michelle because she had to stay there, and it was not a room for me. And the day she was getting out to go to a hospital in Birmingham, they moved her, and then she got a tummy bug, and I think within a few hours she died as well. And I remember coming home, me and Michelle in the car driving home, never spoke. And I know for a fact if she wasn't in that car, I went straight across the motorway and I'd had enough then, like, absolutely had enough.
So this was Dana?
Dana was the last one.
Dana was 23 days
26 days old,
yeah.
Or 28, I think. Aye.
Yeah, I made a little note. 26, yeah.
But if Michelle hadn't been, I'd have been gone. I'd had enough. Because I just thought I'm bringing this all onto Michelle, who's doesn't even park in double yellow lines, she's had such a lovely lady. But then I fell out with my dad then. I'd phoned my dad and I had a massive fallout with him. Then I phoned my mum, and I've never spoke to my mum since that day. So that was 19 years ago. I've never said a word to my mum ever again. Like,
I think that was the painful thing in the book. It's like, you had all this history, all this trauma from a kid, and then it's like, something good's going to happen for you.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Something good's going to happen, yeah. And then you read that, and it's like, I get it when you were saying about God, like, well, is it because of my past behaviours?
Yeah. And I genuinely believe that because of karma.
Do you believe that now or not?
I still do, actually. I feel, do I try and be good? No, I don't try to be good anymore. I am who I am. Like, I've got faults like anybody else has, but I feel the way I deal with if I do feel something creeping back, and if I can get away for a walk somewhere, or go up a mountain, or get on my motorbike, that takes, for whatever reason, that takes it away. Just that peace. I genuinely need peace. I need time by myself. If Michelle was the kind of woman that wouldn't allow that, it would be very, very difficult. I have to have time away by myself.
When you say you don't try and be a good man anymore, what well, firstly, like, what is a good man? And secondly, like, what do you do if the non-effort of trying to be a good man takes you towards a path that you don't want to be? Do you stop that, or do you just let it go and just see where it takes you, even if it's not where you might think is the right place? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I would, and generally, if I was in a bar now, I'm in a bar and somebody said something, I would generally leave that bar now. No, I do not want to get in a fight with anybody. So I would definitely try and avoid everything possible so I don't get into trouble anymore. If I can't avoid that, I would do everything in my power to stop that person. Everything. Has that been a bad man? No, because I've given that person away out so many times.
Yeah.
I'm trying my hardest to keep away from trouble and everything, which I have done for a good few years now. And I'm probably contradicting myself, but it's still there, isn't it? I'm not going to let somebody take my life away without earning it. I'm not going to let anybody take my family's life away. So you're going to, do your thing.
Yeah, but you're what's talked about, which is really healthy. You're clearly still a dangerous and capable man, which is what you should be, but you've got it under control.
I don't see myself that. I don't see myself as I think you get a lot of hard people put themselves out there as hard men. I work with kids, and I class them as hard people with the length of abuse they've been through and things like that, and they're still getting up in the morning, trying to better themselves.
Yeah.
I think that's hard, and I don't necessarily see it as fighting and things like that.
I get that. What's the difference then? I'm just confused on this. Like, if I'm trying to better myself, what's the difference between that and trying to be a good person? Because I can't make sense of it, but I can feel
yourself's being a good person, isn't it?
Yeah, but that's what I mean. Like, but you no longer try and be a good person, right? If that's what I heard you say.
I don't feel whereas before in my old days, I felt if I'd done something wrong to you, I'd feel I'd have to come along and do something good to try and override that.
Yeah, balance the scales.
Balance the scales, and I was quite like that. If I'd done something good, I was still trying to balance the scales. I'd try and do something bad.
Right.
So I went round that way all the time. So good became bad, bad became good, and I would constantly go that way. I genuinely believe I am a good person. I have, I've got to take this to my coffin. I've ruined relationships. I can't change that. I can't change the relationship I have with Michelle, all the stuff that went on in the early days and things like that. I can't, that's not me anymore. I've moved on from that. It's still Gaz, but it's a past of me, isn't it? It's I don't believe that is me anymore, but part of me.
Yeah.
Because it was me.
No,
yeah.
That might sound confusing, but it's not. It makes sense to me.
Yeah.
I get it. I'd love to know more about how you got there, because it's some fucking transformation, man. So I know you did therapy. But if you could sum it up maybe as the few key things that you think you did to get that transformation.
Cutting the drink out. Definitely had to do that.
People ain't going to want to hear that shit, are they?
No, I totally understand that. And I've just been away with my pals, and I haven't been away with them for a lot of years. And they're all good drinkers. And I was with them for 14 days. And I had a shandy them days. Never drank, hardcore drinking. That was the biggest test, probably. Apart from losing Alana, I was tempted to go back to the drink there, and I poured it down the sink. But I think that was that. And coming through that, whatever I've got built in me, I've got that I feel I'm not finished with my life yet. I've got things to achieve, and my achievements is about helping people. That's what I genuinely want to do. What I'd love to be able to do is do it for free. That's if I can get to that part of my life where my family's secure and I'm secure, everything I'm going to do is going to be for free. That's where I want to be in my life.
That's amazing. And you've raised £40,000 for charity as well, haven't you?
I've done different things over the years for the. I've done walks at coast to coast, like some beads to Robin Hood Bay. Done that in 7 days. Really pushed ourselves. Me and my mate done that. I've done the Cleveland Way, just the tough guy events. Used to be tough guys up, and they're not there anymore. Just try and raise money. That helps me. It gives me a focus. And my next one, I'm hoping not next year, because it'll take us about a year to train for. I want to do the Marathon des Sables. So it's a Sahara one. That's
brutal.
Yeah, but it keeps me well.
Yeah, I get it, man.
It's that focus. And Michelle always says, what happens if you lost your legs? Well, I'd do something in a wheelchair.
I believe you, man.
I'd find something to do.
Yeah.
So I have got, I don't know if the right words, willpower, or I always wanted to see who I am. That's the thing that drove me. Who am I?
This is quite, again, this is like a good example though, isn't it? Of like, there is direction to come from spending the first half of your life not doing it well and hurting people, because most decent people will eventually make that shift like you have, and they will dedicate their life to, I don't want to say correct the wrongs, because it's not that, but you're putting good back into the world now, aren't you? You've clearly made that your statement now. That's your mission, right? So it's I'm not saying that you wouldn't be doing this if you hadn't been through all that shit, but there's so many good examples of guys like yourself who suffer so terribly, but then with that suffering they push it into something positive.
No, I think with the girls dying, which might sound really strange for anybody to listen to this, I could have went back to my old ways
easily,
but I've used them in the sense, so maybe I'm doing it for them as well, my children. It probably is a lot behind it. I became a counsellor because my daughters died. Everything I've done, I've changed my life around. Become the bodyguard again, done the bodyguard course again, but went down the good side. I said at the first time, as much as I went down the good side to start off, me being self-destruct, I'd always go to somebody who wasn't good. So going, meeting new people in Birmingham, like Ben and different people who were in the military, and give me a chance to go to Libya and things. People starting to feel that I'm trusting people who trust me, and I can see why they trust me, whereas before I would have never known that.
Sure.
So I've got good friends in my life. I haven't got many. I've got the same friends I've got. Sally Sunham's dead now at home, which I've kept since primary school, secondary school, although they're far away. And I've got maybe half a dozen good friends in Birmingham. I haven't got lots of friends, but I've got good solid friends.
Well, that's important. So giving up the booze, having a small circle of good friends. What would you say was the key therapy for you? If you've tasted different therapies, what would you say has been the most helpful for you?
Probably, I genuinely think it's probably a mixture. Dr. Lombrot, who was my psychologist at the time, he kept me alive. I'm not saying he done that the right way or the wrong way. That's probably I'll come up with another day, that one. It's just what I've learned about therapies and things. Probably having Michelle, having the backing of her.
Just that person to believe in. And she, like I say, she's walked out on us before and things, and rightly so. She didn't deserve to come, she shouldn't have come back, but she did at that time and things. But she came back. She went through her own battles. She was premature when she was a baby. She got the last rites then, and she got the last rites later on in life because she got double pneumonia. Then she met me and living with somebody who was mentally unwell. Having to put up with that, losing the twins, coming through cancer. She was a deputy head teacher. She packed that in at COVID and trained to be a counsellor. Cool.
So she's a counsellor herself now.
Well, you both got a business now, right? That helps. That's dedicated to helping people.
Definitely. And we're totally different, but that you need totally different as well, because one thing doesn't fit, does it?
No.
So we both have our own ways of doing things and things like that. Like I say, I'd say the Reiki helped us again, which some people might doubt that. But I think it helped me as well. The spiritual side's definitely looking into more of that sort of stuff, and not religious, but the spiritual stuff. I know what I need to do to keep myself well. That's a big thing now as well.
So what are some of those? Let's hear some of those.
It's like I said earlier, it's like if I can get near rivers, walking in the countryside, anything like that, getting on my motorbike. That's just, I could be on my motorbike for half an hour and I just feel brilliant. But no, and I'd had that years ago, but Michelle never liked the bikes. But I've managed to get one now, like so. Yeah,
you done much hiking? You've gone up the mountains?
Loads.
You ought to come with us to Nevis in April.
Oh, definitely. I've been up there, Nevis. I've done the 3 peaks.
Cool. Oh, wicked, it's cool. We're doing Nevis again, so that's on April 22nd. We're trying to get 100 people together to do it.
I'll do that, like,
for charity.
Aye.
Yeah, I'll send you the info.
Oh, I'd definitely be up for that one.
I've done it a few times. I did it in January when there was a snowstorm, mate.
Aye.
It was amazing.
Aye.
Oh, it was beautiful.
Yeah.
I always kick myself because I'm like, when you step back and you go, I feel great when I'm doing things like that, and then I feel shit when I'm like, my mind's obsessed with the thing that's causing me issues. You kind of know what's good for you.
Aye.
It's doing it. It's doing it, mate.
Yeah.
It's doing it, and it's doing it consistently. And it's almost like you have to check. Do you know Al Dovey? Because he's through Steve Neal.
Who's that?
Al Dovey. That's who Steve Neal works for at Working Minds. Brilliant psychotherapist, mate. He's fantastic. He always says that how you behave is important. And I know that might sound obvious, but he says thinking all the time is not good for you.
Yeah.
Behavioural.
Yeah.
That's when you need to move your body, go for a coffee, go for a walk, get near the rivers, go. That's the key, man.
Yeah. It's you just hit it on the nail in a sense. It's like, when I do the walks, like Michelle will listen to podcasts, I won't listen to nothing. And there's nothing in my head. It's just I'm just looking around. You're hearing everything that's going on, the birds, if it's raining, you're hearing everything, but there's nothing ticking over in my head at all. It's like empty, and that's probably, as much as I'm walking, that's probably my peace. Yeah, it's like I said, in Libya and Afghan and places I've worked in, I'm actually in my peace. Yeah, because you're living in the moment. You have to be in that moment. Yeah. Whereas when you're at home and there's bills to pay and things and all that stuff, you get caught up in that cycle, don't you?
Yeah, easily. Easily. Again, I don't know whether it's healthy, because at the minute I'm being really active. Because I know that if I'm not, I'm going to get myself into a bit of a mess. Just right now, there's some things going on in my life that are challenging me up here. Yeah. But when I'm at BJJ or lifting weights or doing podcasts, I'm not thinking about that stuff. Yeah. I think that's a good thing, or sometimes I'm like, Alex, you're just running away from what needs to be looked at. Yeah, it's a tough one. How much of this did you have to go back and fix that child stuff?
I've worked a lot with a child. When I trained to be a counsellor, you have to do, I think it was 150 hours counselling yourself, and I tried to get out of it because I said, look, I've done so much therapy, and we've done a lot of child therapy, which totally makes sense to me, like massively. And I've went and travelled to Ireland and met all these, which some people might class as witches and things. Cause I'll try anything, me like this. You have to give it a go, don't you?
I think so. Yeah.
It's all right saying, well, a lot of shit. Yeah. But give it a go and see if it can help you. Yeah. So I've tried loads and loads of different things just to learn from. And I remember going to just outside Belfast, and I remember this old lady. She'd been living with the Indians in Southern America or something like that for years, and she was a midwife, and she swore like fuck, just like you would never think that. But she lay me on the ground. She put this like I don't know, like an animal skin over me, and she was like chanting and that. And you're like, man, this is weird. There's all these burning smells and things in this little old shack, and she sat behind us and put her hands on my head. And I could feel the hands like burning, but all the heat going right through my body. Wow. So I opened my eye, and she was sitting on the chair.
No way.
I think, how she got that chair? Because she definitely sat behind us and put that. But then she had me on the drums, like the Indian drum, and that's not me, that I'm banging and going, woo. And you're looking for cameras to see if it's like, all that stuff. But when I came up from that woman, I felt amazing, man. But she works with inner child. She goes with inner child, and I know, just from my own work, how as adults we can still be ruled by our inner child. Whereas my wife always says, I've got the rebel child. No, but they're not. That's it. That attitude.
I haven't met someone who's transformed who hasn't gone back and dealt with that little child. Yeah.
I think it's how you work, isn't it? I go backwards. I always say I reverse the card before I drive forward. Yeah. And you've got therapies. I'm not knocking them. You've got CBT. I can do CBT because I'm integrated. But my natural being, I like to find the patterns. Where do you come from? Did you have a nice childhood? You had a lovely childhood. You get bullied at school. All them simple little questions. What was it like at college? Something happened at college, or something bad happened. So you think, okay, it's from maybe that part there. I can take work on from there. Yeah. So I always go backwards before I go forwards. And I naturally do that. And maybe that's come from being under a clinical psychologist for 8 years, because they go really right back into you.
Yeah. Well, we're quite resistant to doing that.
I know I was. I mean, he used to say that he used to have a button cloud kick off in the room and everything like.
Oh really? Yeah.
And I'll come home and what a load of shite he is and things. That's just.
Yeah, I've slagged all my therapists. Yeah. Although they've all been I've been lucky. They've all been nice people. Some of them haven't probably helped me progress. But they've all been. I've been lucky, but I've got a good one now. I think.
Aye, yeah.
I think he is. I'm still sat on the fence.
No, it's that rapport, isn't it? It's you have to have that relationship, but it's not going to work, is it?
Sure. Yeah. But he's very. What you were saying at the start, like he's the opposite. He'll start bang on the minute, and finish bang on the minute. I respect that. I don't mind
definitely,
it.
because boundaries, isn't it?
Yeah. But I like the. Can you imagine if everyone was the same and taught the same? It'd be so boring, wouldn't it?
I think, and again, it's my making, because that was the way I was taught in some way. Because I probably learned more being under the psychologist than I ever did going to college to learn.
That's where I learned most of my good stuff.
Definitely have. And he was like that. And he was 50 quid back in 1999, so God knows which is a lot. And we moved to Grimsby, and I would travel twice a week for my therapy from Birmingham to Grimsby. Never missed a session. Then he moved up to East Kilbride. Then I'll travel up there. So that's something I've got that I'm not going to be beaten. So when I make my mind up, that's it. But that doesn't mean to say I will be beaten. But in my head, I'm going to see this out. And it was always, the harder it was, the more I was determined to get through. If it was easy, I don't think I'd have.
There's no value in easy.
No, but is it the right way? I've been brought up that way, in a sense. You don't get anything easy.
But I think that's true.
Yeah.
I did, we met, the Better Man guys met up the other week, and we all shared our 3 biggest wins of the year. And behind those wins was a lot of effort and challenge and sacrifice. Like Nevis was on mine. It was 11.5 hours climbing in the snow. It was painful, blisters, dangerous. But that was the biggest win. And I looked at all the best things in my life, and I thought they've all come from like sacrifice, commitment, dedication. So I love that theory of you drive all the way there for a session, you drive all the way back. It's more skin in the game. It means something.
It's only your body, it's some pain in it.
Yeah, but even just getting on the road, don't you just love that feeling of like getting on that motorway and vroom?
Yeah,
I fucking love it.
No, I love challenges, and I do always challenge myself, and that's a personal thing, really.
You have to.
I think it keeps me well. It gives me focus. Because I could put the weight on quite easy, if I wanted to. So it gives me. I don't do anything from the end of November till January. I enjoy my Christmas and things like that, and I can eat crap and things, which I don't drink, I don't smoke. Then comes not the 1st of January. I don't make New Year's resolutions. Never do that. No. And just start again.
I've already got my thoughts on that Christmas dinner, that dessert, a few beers. I can't wait. No, but it's just but for me, and it's it's just about not giving up, isn't it? Till your last breath, in a sense. It's weird, isn't it? Because like behind that crazy voice that's in our head, our actions show that we're not quitters. We keep fighting. So every time someone gave me this great advice, they said behind that voice, your actions say more. So if you're the kind of guy that gets up and trains, even if that voice tells you you're a piece of shit, you've got evidence there if you look for it that you're not. You've got evidence of good things.
If you want to see it, don't it? That's the thing.
Yeah, well, you got to look for it, man. I have to write this shit down, Gary. I have to write good stuff down, otherwise I miss it. I have to look for it.
I've done the best work ever in my life on me is when I've been vulnerable.
I fucking hate that word.
So do I. Like,
do you know what I mean? It's just,
but I know that for a fact. I had to be in despair, or whatever you want to call it, and everybody's despair is different. Whereas that's when I done my heart, because I'd fight you. Not necessarily physically, I'd be fighting. I'd fight the psychologist. You ain't getting fucking in here, like.
Yeah, I get it.
So till he broke me down, if that's what it's not the proper word, but basically broke me down, where I had this tears coming up my eyes. I've had enough of this, and that I always that's when I done my best work. Then there'd be another stage, go through the same pattern, and Michelle would tell, she knew I was getting better. Whereas every day I'd be kicking off, then it'd be every second day, then it'd be every third day. And all of a sudden she got a week, and it was like the biggest breather ever for her, having a week, and everything's all right. And she's walking on eggshells all the time. Then it becomes fortnight, then a month. You will have arguments, that's life.
Sure.
But nothing like it used to be ever.
Yeah, that's what I've noticed as well. It's the gap between...
Massively.
And it's not like you become this perfect human.
Who is? There's nothing.
Exactly. The two things happen. That gap, like you've just said, and then the way that you correct it changes too. You notice it quicker, and you go, I'm sorry, I fucked up. Boom. Do you know what I mean? Because that's an important thing. You got to catch yourself, apologise, boom, move on.
Definitely, and it's about never giving up till your time's up.
Yeah.
You know, it's a big one for me. I always have that in my head. Never give up, and I won't give up. Does that mean to say that's right? Sometimes you need to learn to give up. Sometimes as well, like the drink, things like that. There's things you have to learn to drink to give up.
Yeah. I think for fighters like yourself, and I class myself in this, I find it harder to give things up than I do to do things.
Aye.
Do you know what I mean?
What's the hardest battle? The hardest battle is not me and you having a scrap out there. It's hardest battle is yourself, isn't it?
Sure.
Massively, like that's a piece of piss. Whether it doesn't matter who wins. It's fighting with me was the hardest battle I've ever done.
Yeah.
And I feel I've earned my, what weight am I now? 14 stone, whatever that super middleweight titles or whatever you want to call it. Yeah, I've earned them.
I think you're a cruiserweight is what they call it, man.
Probably I cruiserweight now.
Cruiserweight now, yeah. 14 stones
I'm
a
touching
cruiserweight.
heavyweight like that now.
Yeah, but now you got some room. 15.7's a heavyweight, so you got loads of room.
No,
man. Enjoy your Christmas. You could put a few pounds on, still be cruiser.
I won't get 15 there. Like,
nah.
So that's it. But it does, and I've learned that that's a piece of piss. But honest to God, I would never want to go through what I've had to do to get to here now again.
I know.
I don't want that to put people off doing it, because if you've got that will to change your life, I do believe everybody has it. It's choices, isn't it? It's making them choices.
But you're a fighter, clearly, man. You've had to, mate. I think you're very humble. Like that was draining for me to compose that interview and get that together, because I could see the fight. I could feel the fight in that book.
Yeah,
I could feel it, and I was tired, and I thought, I bet you're tired.
I think now, as probably, what am I, 56? I feel tired.
Yeah.
I feel worn out. Not from, is it life? No, I just feel...
It's war though, surely. It's been war.
Oh, massively, like. And I was speaking to my friend on Friday, that day, Ben. He's become a good friend of mine, and he's the one that got me over to do my, like the work overseas and things like that. And we have chats, and you go in there, you go for a coffee. We'll meet maybe once every 3 months. You go for an hour. You're there 4 hours. And you think if anybody was listening to us, they wouldn't get it.
Yeah.
There's certain people you can speak to. It just gets what you're on about and what you mean. It's not bravado. It's not about trying to be tough and that. It just gets who you are.
No, I understand that.
And why you do it.
So what's next for you then? So you've got this life ahead of you now, or one that you're at peace with. Like, yeah, what?
I want to get out. We started doing talks before COVID. Me and my wife obviously started doing that on. There's a company called Lambs based in Birmingham, Derby, the construction company. So they got us out to do talks to the lads on site and things like that.
Yeah, great. So
I've got another chance of doing that in January with another company. My wife's just done talks by herself. So it's about getting out, being real about it, not flowering it up and being real, or the swearing, and that's, to me, that's real.
Sure.
I work with kids. I developed Safeguarding Me programs for kids in schools. And they're all about your physical well-being, your mental well-being, spiritual, emotional, whatever you want to call it. I have a character called Little Billy, they're all the true stories. Some of the stories is about my childhood, but Little Billy's the main character. So you might be Little Billy struggling with anger, Little Billy's struggling with self-esteem, Little Billy's been sexually exploited. It's all tailored for year sixes. Little Billy travels on a train, bus, things. So it's all about teaching them how to keep themselves safe. So all my life story, my training and everything's put into the Safeguarding Me program, and so it's got everything in it. It's got all my bodyguard and stuff I've learned, my self-defense stuff, the battles I've had emotionally myself, and my counselling. So it's all put into this little character. Yeah. And it teaches, and these programs, sadly, it's getting less. It's hard to get into schools now because of the funding. Right. But I know there's a few kids that have come forward and said they've been abused of their family because of these programs, and that's helped them. Right. So I would love to try and keep that going. Yeah. And again, it's one of them, if I could do it for free, I would. But I can't afford to live if I do it for free. Get my books out. Just promote mental health, really. Just keep doing that. That's what I really want to do. That's my passion in that. And and generally helping people. Like I say, if I could do it for free, just rock up my motorbike, help somebody, and just get yourself a little bit, going back to the comics. Like that guy, everybody thought he was a coward, but he was a hero. Nobody knew what he'd done. He just done all these... I think that's just made a connection to me, because I've always wondered why I wanted to do that, and I think that's the connection. Yeah. You just go and help somebody. You don't tell anybody. You don't boast about it, and you just piss off. And that person, God, he's a nice guy. I wonder who he is. You don't have to say.
Well, if anyone qualifies for that role, mate, that's you, man.
I appreciate that. Like,
well, no, it's true. You've been through it. You've lived it. Yeah. It's real.
But I know, you probably know what I'm going to say now, but lots of people have, and lots of people have got worse life stories than me.
They have, but
Yeah.
lots haven't too.
Yeah.
You know, I read that and that's some humble past. Like, Alex, like, you think you've been through some shit? Read this.
Aye. It's not meant to do that, like. In
No,
a sense,
I know, and it's inspired me. I'm not.
Yeah, that's a different thing, isn't
Yeah,
it? I don't want people to think, well, oh God, his problems was worse than mine. I'm not going to moan at
No,
everybody's problems are problems, aren't they?
No, yeah, but it's more like you need evidence of survivors.
Yeah.
So you need to share all the shit that's happened.
I look at it as thrivers.
Yeah.
Not necessarily.
But that comes after surviving for
definitely,
me.
because survivors are holding on to the dinghies.
Yeah,
in the
but there was a time where you were doing that.
Well, Jesus, definitely.
Yeah, and that's why I think you needed to say all that stuff, because if you'd have just said how you've transformed your life, Gary, it's like, fucking, that was easy for Gary. But I want to hear all the difficult stuff.
Yeah.
And you were really good at that.
Yeah.
And again, it gives hope, it gives promise, inspiration. Because like you say, if you can make that transformation, then fucking 99% of people can too.
I do. I think, you've worked with some, like Jeff, and he'll probably say that, you change, don't you? You
do.
You don't like to change it.
Yeah.
I know that's not easy. I know that myself.
Not easy. It's straightforward, but it's not easy.
Straightforward, but that's it. We've got one go as far as I know. I haven't met anybody that's come back yet.
Yeah.
So, like I say, I'm 56. I'd like to say I've still got 30 years in us.
Yeah.
As long as I'm fit and healthy and well, I'll just keep doing what I'm doing, really.
Good.
And just try and get my story out there to.
Yeah. Well, hopefully this helps too.
No, I appreciate your time.
No, I appreciate yours, mate. Yeah.
Nice to hear what it says, because I do waffle.
No, you're fucking awesome.
Yeah.
I got one more question for you though.
Yeah.
This is a traditional question. What are you now working on in order to become a better man?
Probably. Do you stop working on yourself? Somebody asked me that ages ago. Some people say you never stop working on yourself, but then do you get to a place, actually, I'm happy who I am, so I don't need to work on myself,
I think you're always working on yourself.
Because
even there's maintenance, because it's easy to slip back. Like
100%.
If you didn't pour that drink down the fucking sink and it's in you.
Yeah. Well, if you look at it that way, you're right in a sense, because if I didn't stop doing challenges, if I stopped not training myself, would I go backwards? I'll never go back to where I was, I know that. But would I slip backwards? I probably would a little bit.
It's easy.
So it's just keep working on myself.
Yeah.
And generally, it does sound a bit wishy-washy. I generally just want to help people. That's my goal. And keep and I do change. My wife goes mad at me because I change, not careers, but I'll be a counsellor for so many years and I'm looking for something else. But it's all in that journey.
Sure.
It's all the same path. I don't believe there's two paths. It's just that one path. The shit on the way sometimes, and you do silly things and blah blah.
Yeah.
But you stay in that path, don't you? And
I think so. I'm a big fan of trying different things, and you'll know what lights you up.
Oh, definitely.
And you'll know whether you want to dive deeper on that.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's,
and what lights me up is being in front of people, talking. As much as I look back in the podcast, whereas I'm scared stiff to do that in front of Tony Summers all them years ago.
Yeah, it's crazy.
And proper frightened to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because yourself, you're getting all the same fears as you're getting attacked.
Yeah.
It's the same.
I still haven't worked out how I can have these open conversations with a guy I don't know on a podcast. Yeah. Sometimes with people close to me, one-to-one, behind cameras, I don't feel anywhere near as comfortable. It's crazy, isn't it? I could speak to you about anything now.
But is it because you don't know me?
Probably, but I mean, there's fucking cameras here and a microphone in front of my face. Why aren't I clamming up? Why aren't I keeping things in? It's weird. I'm like, what the fuck's that all about? Is this my outlet? Is this a way that I can be carefree? Maybe it feels like a job and I can disguise it as somebody else. I don't know.
It's all about being you, innit? It's whether you know who you is yet. That's the thing, isn't it?
That's a job, man. That's a mission.
That is like, I definitely have worked enough to know who I am.
Yeah.
Definitely have.
Sure.
I know I've got my flaws, and I think if anybody said they haven't, they're wrong.
Yeah.
I know my temptations are still there to go for alcohol, but I don't.
Yeah.
So they're all there, like.
Mate, what a pleasure that was.
Pleasure.
Thank you, man. That was fucking awesome.
No, I appreciate it, Alex, to be honest.
No, thanks for coming down. Thanks for sharing. Keep sharing the story, please, because like I say, it's epic, mate. It's really inspiring.
It's like I say, and you're probably you've listened to us enough that it's hard to understand why people think it's that, but yeah, that's maybe my weakness. It's to believe that.
It's mine too, man. It's mine too. So, mate, that was quality. Thank you, man.
No, you're welcome.